so next we're going to talk about hair. I'm also going to throw in eyes and lips because that's a really common question I get about how to shade those in. So, but starting with hair, I mean, I obviously cannot do every single hair type in the world here, but I have sort of broken it down into some steps, some 3 easy steps to help you think of how to draw hair. And the first thing to think about not doing, I guess, is people want to draw each individual hair. When they're drawing hair, they're thinking of actually drawing the hairs, right? You don't want to do that. You have millions of hair on your head. And the minute you start drawing, like, the hair, your person looks like this. Come on, you know, you've all done it, right? Look, she's got 4 pieces of hair, right? So you don't want to draw individual hairs. What you're really just trying to do is trying to get the texture of the hair and the value of the hair, not the individual hairs. So I have just 3 kind of different hair types here. I've got long and straight, some curly hair, some short spiky hair. So we'll do the same 3 steps on all of them to make them look more finished. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do, and I've kind of already done it on this worksheet, and you can write it down here on the side if you want to, is find the chunks. So hair moves in different directions, and it does have a tendency to sort of clump together. So with this girl right here, you can see, and you can do this with the pencil for your ink portrait, or you can do it with marker, but you're going to find how that hair tends to kind of chunk together like this. So curly hair gets chunks too. It's just that instead of them being straight, they kind of, you know, you get something more like this. You get a chunk like this. Sometimes, you know, they weave in and out from underneath each other at times too. Right? So it just depends. So if you've got like wavy hair, curly hair, tighter spiral curly hair, but you're going to look for the chunks, right? So that's what all these things are right here. The second thing you're going to do, and this is a little counterintuitive, but you're going to shade the negative spaces. So if you have a person that you're drawing that has blonde hair, this is especially important because how do you draw blonde hair with a black marker? You can't. I mean, you can't draw the hairs. You have to draw the spaces between the hair and just try to get the feeling of the texture. It's the same thing if you have black hair though. So even if you like look around the room right now at somebody who has dark hair, the hairs that are the chunks on the surface catch reflection. So those are brighter. It's the spaces in between those hair where those chunks break apart that actually are darker. And that is the same whether you have light hair or dark hair. So she's going to look like she's getting a really bad dye job at first. And that freaks people out. But the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to, and I'm still using hatching because I want to use a texture that makes sense. But I'm going to shade negative spaces first. And that's the places where I think the hair is breaking apart. And it could be, I'm just adding some like streaks where these chunks kind of break apart in the middle. She's going to look like she's got zebra stripes. We're going to fix that. But these are the spaces behind or between. And if she's got long straight hair, these spaces or negative spaces are probably going to be long and straight. So she's going to look a little weird at first. Now I'm going to attempt to draw this so that we have half brunette and half blonde. okay? Because it's the same thing, it's just how much texture you put on top of it. You put a lot of texture on top of it, it ends up being brown hair. You put very little, it ends up being blonde hair. So brunette is easier to do because it's easier to add more than less. So right now, in step number 3 is adding texture, but I'm going to leave highlights alone. If you forget to leave the highlights alone, and all of the hair ends up being one value, one tone, the hair reads as not shiny or dirty, right? So the highlights are really, really important to making that hair look like it's shiny and clean. So if I look at one, and I don't know if I have one totally finished here. This one's close. You can start seeing shine or highlights in the bangs or maybe just on the surface of those chunks. So I'm not going to go and shade the whole thing super dark. This is more brunette here. But I am going to add texture and think about where my light source is. And if you're looking at a photograph, you can see where the light source is. And I'm just adding that hatching texture over the top. So I think her bangs are going to catch some, usually the crown of the head catches a highlight. You can run a couple lines through it, but you want to go easy. Okay, so as is, she's sort of blonde. She's light. The only thing I would push more on the blonde is making sure that those weird streaks that I made originally blended in inconspicuously so that they didn't look like zebra stripes anymore. So I might work that little area a little bit more. So it's hard because you want to just keep blending and mixing, but the more ink I put down, the darker her hair gets. So if I want to leave, I'm going to leave this side alone, but if I want to go and make this side a little bit more brunette, then I can go a little further with it. But I am going to be careful not to make it solid black. I want some shininess to it. I think that black or dark hair is even shinier than blonde hair because there's such a strong contrast. So I'm going to push that side a little bit darker. it's going to be the same steps on this person, right? So this is just like big curls, right? So the first thing I've done is I've found the chunks. It's like these big curls going on top, right? The negative spaces, or the spaces behind the curls, or that run through the curls, and I've got to really think about the contour of the curl. It's a cylinder. So I want to keep my marks following that contour, just like we did with the shapes. So first I'm going to give her a bad dye job with all these weird streaks in her hair, or his hair, I don't know what this is, male or female. And then I'm going to go back through adding the texture but leaving the highlights alone. Now this time I think there's going to be the highlight on the top of each cylinder. So I'm going to shade the bottom and the top. And I'm going to leave the center of the cylinder a little bit lighter. I'll run a couple little lines through it, but I want to leave that reflective surface. Again, a lot of variation in the values.